Today's the day I am going to rank every poem in the power and conflict cluster there is, and I guarantee you I am going to offend some people. First off we have Bayonet Charge by the man who didn't even go to war, the fraud himself, Ted Hughes. This poem is about a soldier desperately charging into battle. He realizes the danger he is in and runs towards the battle in fear. This poem has great quotes to analyze, with loads of different interpretations available, which gets the analysis up to perceptive or even conceptual. This poem is capable of being linked to the other war poems, and could also link to other power poems since it has the theme of control in it. Therefore, I am going to put Bayonet Charge in the A tier. Next up we have Checking Out Me History by the Guyanese icon John Agard. This poem is about the speaker recounting all of the historical figures he was taught as a child. He then lists all of the figures from Black history who were not mentioned. At the end, the speaker resolves to discover more about his own heritage. The main themes of this poem are identity and the abuse of power. This is a fun poem to look at due to its abundance of figurative language and structural techniques. However, this poem is quite limited in what it can be compared to. Besides, there are better power poems that can connect to a broader range of poems. For this reason I am going to put it in the C tier. Next up we have Exposure by the Gigachad Wilfred Owen. This poem is about the terrifying experience of a night in the trenches of soldiers in the First World War. This is one of the best poems in this cluster as it is quite versatile in making comparisons. Exposure covers conflict, nature, and people's experiences, which is quite a large spectrum. It also has good quotes with multiple methods and interpretations embedded in them, making the poem quite easy to analyze. Besides, this poem is written by a soldier who actually fought in the trenches, so it gets some bonus points. Therefore, I am going to put Exposure in the S tier. But before we continue with the tier list, here's a word from today's sponsor, Perimeter Development Studios. Once again, thanks to Perimeter Development Studios for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description and check out their Patreon. Also please like and share this video as I am being sponsored 1 garlic bread per 2,000 views. Without further ado, let's continue with the tier list. Up next we have Kamikaze, which is really underrated in my opinion. This poem is about a daughter's reflection on her connection and relationship to her father, who was a kamikaze pilot in World War II and decided not to complete his suicide mission. The poem also delves into the situation where the father was shunned by his family after returning due to the cultural expectations placed upon them in Japan. This poem is quite versatile in the sense that it covers a range of themes within warlike attitudes towards conflict and how people are affected. Besides, this poem also covers family identity, which could be linked to a number of power poems. Moreover, this poem has a number of good quotes to analyze. Combined with the flexibility of this poem, Kamikaze definitely belongs in the S tier. Next up we have London by William Blake. This poem is about an anonymous speaker walking through London and commenting on the filth and corruption he sees. The speaker, could be assumed to be Blake, criticizes the authorities which have allowed the city to get into such a dangerous and unpleasant state. This poem focuses on the abuse of power, which is quite nice as most of the other power poems are about control as well. The poem is also easy to memorize as there is a strict rhyme scheme with some lines having iambic pentameter used. There are also clear themes in this poem, from class oppression to sexual exploitation. Overall, this is a solid poem to focus on and I am going to put it in the A tier. Up next we have Ozymandias, not to be confused with Ozymandias the episode in Breaking Bad. This poem is about the discovery of a semi-destroyed and decaying statue of Rameses II, also known as Ozymandias, and shows how power deteriorates and will not last forever. This poem covers an array of themes, ranging from nature to the abuse of power, making it a versatile poem to learn as it can be compared with most if not all power poems. In addition, despite this poem only being 14 lines long, it is packed with literary techniques like alliteration, metaphors, and symbolism. Therefore, similar to London, I am going to put it in the A tier. Next up we have My Last Duchess, written by Robert Downey Jr.'s long-lost brother Robert Browning. This poem is about an Italian duke, who has supposedly killed his first wife and is now planning another wedding to another woman. He displays a painting done of his dead wife in his house, and reveals it to a visitor, who is made to sit and admire it. This is one of the longest poems from the cluster and was the chosen poem in the 2023 exam. The main theme in this poem is the abuse of power, which links to most if not all of the power poems. This poem has also got techniques that are easy to find and analyze, like possessive pronouns, enjambments, and caesuras. Combined with the fact that this poem will likely not come up in the next few years, this is a poem that is worth it to dive deeper in, and it deserves a place in the A tier. Next up we have Poppies by Jane Weir. This poem is about a mother who recalls caring for her son and reminisces about his childhood before it is revealed that he is no longer there as he went to war. This poem belongs in the war cluster, yet it focuses on civilians left behind instead of soldiers, making it a unique poem to analyze. Because of that, it might be hard to think of perceptive links under time pressure in exams. Similar to Kamikaze, Poppies also touches on the theme of family identity, meaning that it could potentially link with other poems with themes of identity. However, there aren't many impressive language techniques to zoom in on, which means it will go into the B tier. Next up we have Remains, written by the current poet laureate Simon Armitage. The poem is about a soldier who is haunted by his involvement in a shooting of a bank looter. It also explores the repercussions of war for individuals who come out of conflict zones and raises awareness of conditions such as PTSD. This is an amazing poem to focus on if the theme of the question is about people's experiences or memories. There are also many language techniques used, like vivid imagery, alliteration, and figurative language. This poem forms extremely strong and valid links with all of the other war poems, with potential stretches to power poems. Overall, Remains is a staple to learn from the war poems, and it belongs in the S tier. Next up we have The Charge of the Light Brigade, written by the deceased poet laureate Alfred Lord Tennyson. This poem is about a large brigade of soldiers being commanded to march to their deaths. They charge heroically, but few remain as they retreat. Although this poem is easy to remember as there are rhyming couplets and a constant rhythm throughout, it is not very versatile in the sense that there aren't clear comparisons to power poems. Still, this is a solid poem to compare to other war poems, since it doesn't take a negative attitude towards conflict unlike the others, and for that reason I am going to put it in the B tier. Up next we have The Emigre by Carol Rumens. This poem is about somebody who had to leave their country as a child to be safe. They are looking back fondly whilst lamenting the discrimination they experience in their new country. Personally, I think that this poem is not as good as the reputation it lives up to. This poem can be connected to other poems about identity, and that's about it. In addition, the last stanza is quite vague in what it's trying to convey, meaning those quotes might be misinterpreted under exam conditions. The only saving grace for this poem is that it has the motif of sunlight throughout, which provides an opportunity for analysis. For this reason I am going to put The Emigre in the B tier. Up next we have The Prelude by the boat-stealing legend William Wordsworth. This poem is about Wordsworth's childhood memory in the Lake District, where he steals a boat and rows it into the middle of the lake. He sees a huge mountain, which makes him realize the monumental nature of the mountain, changing how he sees nature. The Prelude has a limited number of choices to be compared to, as it narrowly focuses on the power of nature, which means that it is hard to compare it like for like with other poems. The only poems which talk about nature are Ozymandias, Storm on the Island, and Exposure. Even if those poems come up, there still are better options for comparing other than The Prelude. Therefore I am going to put it in the D tier due to its lack of versatility. Next up we have Storm on the Island by the Irish lad Seamus Heaney. This poem investigates the battle of nature versus man through a community of islanders who are preparing for a storm. The poem centers on the locals' experience of the storm and how this impacts their lives. Similar to The Prelude, the main focus in this poem is the power of nature, making Storm on the Island a niche poem which can't be compared to most other poems. However, this poem also slightly touches on the identity of a place, meaning that there might be possible links to London and Emigre. This earns it a place in C tier. Next up we have War Photographer by the previous poet laureate Carolyn Duffy. This poem is about a war photographer contemplating his job whilst developing his photos. He realizes that the public does not care about the issues he is trying to shed light on. This poem covers several themes like impacts of conflict, experiences and suffering of people, and the futility of war. This is a good poem to look at with clever uses of structural and language techniques. The only thing limiting War Photographer to S tier is that there is almost always a slightly better poem than it in each of those themes. For that reason I am going to put it in the A tier. Last and definitely the least, we have the most hated poem by GCSE students, Tissue. This poem uses tissue paper as an extended metaphor for life to show that although fragile, humans have a large amount of power to change things. This poem is quite vague in what it is describing, and it is quite hard to learn, with language techniques that aren't easy to spot at first sight. Although Tissue has some good links with other poems, it requires careful thinking and crafting of the comparisons, which is difficult to do under time pressure in exams. For this reason I am going to put it in D tier alongside the Prelude. And here is the full tier list of the power and conflict cluster. Feel free to spark a debate in the comments section if you have a different opinion. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.